Revealed. How I transformed an awkward baby shower into an incredible moment of hidden connection. Jessica stood at the entrance, the air laden with the fragrance of floral arrangements and designer balloons that felt impossibly extravagant. She took a moment to brace herself as laughter spilled from the room, a sound that felt like a foreign melody she didn't know the words to. The chatter around her was a whirlwind of motherhood and wealth, measurements of success that felt like daggers against her frugal heart. She was here to support her cousin, but beneath her confident smile, a storm of inadequacy churned within. The conversations brushed past her like the fervor of a summer storm. Every compliment tossed her way felt like a reminder of what she lacked. "Was that a new dress, Jessica?" one friend chirped, followed by a glance at the hand-me-down deeply rooted in her modest means. In a heartbeat, those questions morphed into whispers that echoed in her mind. "You don't belong here. What do you have to offer?" Each interaction tightened the grip of her insecurities, making the lavish decor seem to mock her choices in life. Then, as if the universe responded to her emotional distress, an elderly woman caught everyone's attention. Mrs. Eleanor's voice trembled slightly as she recounted a love story that transcended material wealth. It was raw and truthful in a way that cut through the layers of pretense surrounding them. The room fell silent, and in that silence, something shifted. Hearts softened and laughter faded into contemplative stillness. Jessica, prompted by Eleanor's courage, felt a spark ignite deep within. Fueled by her internal struggle, she steeled herself and followed suit. "I'm just a nurse, you know, juggling shifts while raising my son." The words escaped before she could cage them, and with them came the tremors of vulnerability she rarely allowed to surface. An uncomfortable silence punctuated her confession, as everyone seemed to wrestle with their reflexive instinct to mask their own realities. As Eleanor's story opened the floodgates, a few others spoke up. Admissions of loneliness, financial strain, and the suffocating pressure to uphold appearances. Each shared moment felt like a thread knitting their lives together, tangling their experiences in a tapestry of human connection. Jessica inhaled deeply, feeling exposed, yet empowered. But doubt gnawed at her resolve. Among women who resided comfortably in the realms of privilege, did her struggle even warrant acknowledgement? Before she could decipher her own feelings, a sudden knock jolted her from her thoughts. The door swung open softly, revealing Charlie, her 10-year-old son. His expression was urgent, shattering the fragile connections that had only just formed. A group text flashed on her phone, filled with frantic messages hinting at trouble at home, left her heart racing. The laughter around her dulled, a reminder that reality lurked just beyond the facade of the celebration. Caught between the vibrant community of shared struggles and the weight of her responsibilities back home, Jessica felt torn in two. As anxiety mounted, she realized the depth of her truth held more power than her fears. Would she dare to redefine her worth in a world that often measured success by wealth? The room buzzed with a sense of enlightenment, yet anchored in her heart was an impending storm she could hardly face. Would she step into her own narrative or slip back into the shadows of expectation? The answer slipped just out of reach like the sunlight fading behind the clouds. Jessica's heart raced as she knelt to meet Charlie at the door, the humid air of the gathering conversation pressing against her like a suffocating blanket. His worried gaze pulled her away from the whirling chaos of the baby shower, ushering her back to the realities that awaited her. "Mom, it's bad," he breathed out, his voice a thin whisper laced with urgency. The walls around her felt like they were closing in, narrowing her focus to the unspoken words that hung in the air. "Slow down, buddy. What happened?" she managed to say, forcing herself to stay calm despite the tidal waves of anxiety shooting through her thoughts. Her responsibilities, her life, everything suddenly seemed to collide in an overwhelming rush. He bit his lip, glancing away as if afraid to burden her further. The flicker of concern in his eyes triggered something deep within her. The instinct to protect, to console. Yet she couldn't shake off the nagging feeling that she'd just begun to taste a different kind of empowerment through vulnerability. We had a fight. Sam said stuff. Mean stuff. I don't want to go back there. Charlie's voice broke like a chink in her mental armor. She saw the boy she prioritized, realizing that her own happiness mattered less than his safety and emotional well-being. A familiar guilt threatened to reclaim her attention. Jessica fought against it. She hadn't spent her youth being molded by society's definition of success, solely to back down now. Could conversations about wealth and motherhood coexist with her own narrative? She glanced towards the lively party, torn between two worlds, watching as laughter once again filled the room. But here, with her son, she was faced with the harsh truth. Life didn't wait for the perfect moment. Okay, let's talk about it, she said firmly, her mind deciding to embrace both sides of her life. We can find a way through this, together. As they stepped away from the door, a new wave of determination surged within her. She quickly texted her cousin, letting her know she had to leave and needed to attend to family matters. The moment she pressed send felt like a release, a conscious decision to stand tall in discomfort, a recognition of her right to prioritize herself and her son over societal expectations. As they walked to her car, Jessica's internal dialogue shifted dramatically. Why had she always believed her worth was dictated by the opinions of others? Wasn't there a strength to reclaiming her roles as a nurse, a mother, and a woman, despite not conforming to the extravagant lifestyle of her peers? Each step redefined how she viewed her competence and capabilities. Arriving at home, Charlie sank onto the couch, the affinity of their space bringing a sense of relief. Staring at him closely as he recounted the cruel words hurled at him, she recognized how her child mirrored her own struggles with self-worth. "Charlie," she said softly, "remember how we talked about sharing our truths?" With a gentle nudge, she encouraged him to articulate his feelings, to unveil the fears he harbored. As she listened, a powerful realization washed over her. By nurturing his vulnerability, she was simultaneously nurturing her own. The act of speaking their truths, as simple yet profound as it was, forged a bridge between their hearts. Jessica felt a new fire ignite within her, the kind that illuminated shadows she had long deemed unworthy of affection or attention. It wasn't just about her, but how her choices impacted those anchored to her support. Yet, as a newfound clarity began shaping her understanding, an unsettling thought lingered. Was confronting her past? Her fears? Was that enough? Just then, her phone vibrated with an incoming message. It was from Mrs. Eleanor, inviting her to an art exhibition showcasing local resilience. The message struck a chord, resonating with the hidden potential Jessica had tapped into. Would she take the plunge into this new opportunity? Would she engage with a community of creatives, stretching beyond her comfort zone, or retreat once more into a life of expectation? The path ahead seemed tangled, but for the first time, it felt like it could lead to unexpected treasures. Jessica laid her phone down, the screen still glowing in the dim light of her living room. Mrs. Eleanor's invitation spun in her mind, another thread woven into this unfolding narrative of her life. Local resilience. The phrase echoed, resonating with her own internal battle against the tides of doubt. It was just an exhibition, a glimpse into others' struggles and triumphs. But to Jessica, it felt like an open door to a world she had only ever peered into from the outside. Standing there, her heart compelled her to act. Yet a small voice within murmured caution. What would it mean to engage creatively after spending years buried in the routine of work and motherhood? She moved to the window, the twilight casting a soft hue over the neighborhood. The world outside felt vibrant, alive with possibility. For the first time in ages, Jessica questioned her long-standing beliefs about her own limitations. Kicking off her shoes, she paced around the living room, thoughts swirling chaotically. Memories of her younger self, alive with ambition and brimming with creativity, surfaced like old photographs. With each step, she wrestled with the fear of stepping back into a social landscape that felt foreign. Charlie's voice pulled her back as he emerged from the couch, tugging her sleeve gently. "Mom, are you okay?" "Just thinking about the exhibition," she replied, instantly aware of the burden of her hesitation reflected in her son's eyes. "I might go." A mix of encouragement and anxiety washed over Charlie. "You should. You always said it's good to try new things." His innocent excitement ignited a spark in her. He believed she could do anything. Why couldn't she believe it too? She shifted her focus, empowering herself through the lens of her role as a parent. It was time to model bravery, to confront her fears of inadequacy head-on. "Okay," she said firmly, conjuring the resolve that had simmered under the surface. "I'm going to do it." The days unfurled quickly, Angela immersing herself in preparation for the exhibition. Each planning moment became a mosaic of nervous anticipation and determined excitement. She sketched ideas about how to present her feelings through art, a different kind of healing. She felt a surge of creativity that had long lain dormant, hidden beneath obligations and expectation. On the day of the exhibition, as she stood before the venue, the visceral energy of the crowd buzzed like static in the air. Jessica adjusted her scarf, a pop of color against her understated outfit. Doubt flickered momentarily, making her wonder if she belonged in this artistic realm. But she squashed it down. Standing amidst a community of creators, she felt an undercurrent of shared struggle. "What if nobody wants to hear what I've created?" she thought, fear curling at the edges of her mind. Yet the parallel of Charlie's struggle echoed in her heart. This place was a sanctuary for all voices, a testament to resilience, including her own. When Mrs. Eleanor approached, the warm familiarity opened a path to connection that put her at ease. They spoke about the artwork and its themes. Jessica found herself drawn in, feeling connected to the stories of others. As she moved from piece to piece, she could hear the laughter, the discussions, the heartfelt exchanges. Inspiration flowed, rejuvenating not only her spirit, but also illuminating her path forward. But still, a nagging thought lurked. How would the experience influence her identity beyond this moment? Just then, she stumbled across a piece that struck a chord deep within her. A collection of portraits etched with the emotional scars of life. Suddenly, facing the vulnerability of these artists made her question her own narrative. Was she ready to unveil her internal struggles completely? The moment of realization dawned just as Mrs. Eleanor returned, her expression earnest. "You've been quiet about your own art. What do you think? Are you ready to share your voice?" Jessica stood frozen, her breath caught between fear and desire. In that fleeting moment, she perceived not just a challenge but an invitation, a call to acknowledge her identity as an artist. The stakes were climbing, and the courage she had nurtured began to feel like a wave ready to crash. Would she grab hold of this opportunity to share the depth of her journey, allowing others to see her fully for the first time? As the room buzzed around her, Jessica felt the heat of potential igniting within. But stepping into this newfound territory varied vastly from her envisioned comfort zone. What would it take for her to reveal her truth? The moment had arrived where her story could intertwine with others. A step into the unknown. As she contemplated the direction she would take, a deep breath calmed her racing heart. Could she rise to confront not just the fear of judgment, but the possibility of connection it represented? The threshold loomed before her, and she could sense a hidden revelation beckoning to be discovered. Would she dare to embrace it? Jessica's thoughts churned as she stood in front of the vibrant artwork, grappling with the enormity of the invitation Mrs. Eleanor had just extended. The chorus of laughter and discussion swirled around her, yet she remained ensnared in a moment of introspection. Could she truly unveil her vulnerabilities? The pull of the art was undeniable. It exuded stories, emotions, echoes of life's battles that struck her deeply. She cast another glance over the faces surrounding her. Creators, each carving their own niche, their own identity. What was stopping her from doing the same? With an absent nod to Mrs. Eleanor, she stepped back, pressing her palms into the cool surface of the art installation before her. Every brushstroke told a story of its own. Triumphs and defeats, laughter and tears. It was raw. It was real. And it whispered to her to let go of countless years spent wrapping herself in the armor of everyday life. A shift in her perspective dawned on her. A quiet recognition. Perhaps this was less about exposing her perceived failures and more about revealing her journey. She had weathered storms. She had sophisticated layers. And surely her narrative was worthy of sharing. With a breath validated by newfound resolve, Jessica surveyed the space with fresh eyes. This environment wasn't just a backdrop for showcasing art. It was a vibrant tapestry, interwoven with individual lives, resonant connections waiting to be formed. Could she weave her own thread into this intricate fabric? The thought pushed her into a more active frame of mind. Instead of letting her uncertainty paralyze her, she began mentally mapping out her intention. How could she communicate not just her experiences, but also her interpretations through art? As she watched a nearby artist elaborate on their work, Jessica contemplated how the documentation of everyday struggles could resonate more profoundly with people than any polished facade. She took a step forward, nudged by a desire to engage. What if she shared her process? The canvas of her life was scribbled with trials that were so relatable, so human. The essence of her story could find echoes in the hearts of others. What mediums resonate with your experience? A voice interjected, startling her back into the moment. It was Mrs. Eleanor again, her inquisitive expression inviting. "I don't know where to start," Jessica admitted, her vulnerability seeping through her measured exterior. Mrs. Eleanor beamed, intertwining with the excitement of exploring unknown territories. "Start with a moment that defines you. What embodies resilience for you? Capture that." Those words ignited something latent within Jessica. Her mind flared with scenes, fragments of her life battling against doubt and complacency. Images of her childhood aspirations flashed, colors of hope against shadows of restraint. This isn't just an exhibition for me anymore, she realized. It's recalibrating how I see myself. With heartfelt gratitude, Jessica committed herself to the challenge. She needed to parse through the emotions layered within her experience, giving each one a voice through art. That small voice murmuring caution was beginning to morph into an anthem urging her on. The weight of her hesitation threatened to capitulate, unveiling a brighter possibility of self-expression. Then the inevitable pang of insecurity fluttered in her stomach again. What if her vulnerabilities didn't translate into strength? What if they fell flat, unnoticed among the vibrant work surrounding her? Yet with a palpable determination solidifying within her, she held her ground. The anonymity of the crowd no longer felt suffocating. Instead, it seemed to serve as a sanctuary. Jessica began pacing again, this time with renewed fervor, mapping her thoughts into outlines for a potential project. As she prepared to engage in conversation with other artists, excitement surged, intertwined with a lingering strain of self-doubt. She was on the precipice of a decision that would define much more than just the presentation of her art. It could reshape the fabric of her identity into one that was more authentic. The stakes were high, and with every breath, Jessica felt a deeper calling. How would she decide to represent her truth? And what if, in revealing her journey, she unearthed an artist within herself she never knew existed? Every choice lay before her, and with it, the urgency of the moment pressed in. The next step beckoned, and she stood at the threshold of transformation, with a bold question already rising within her heart. Was she truly ready to embrace her authentic self? Not just for herself, but as a promise to her son? With that, she poised herself, determined that the next move would create ripples of connection, both within her and with the world around her. Jessica inhaled deeply, allowing the electric energy in the room to invigorate her senses. She could feel the artistry swirling around her, a blend of colors, mediums, and emotions shaped by the longing to connect. Her heart raced as she realized that she stood not merely as a spectator, but as a participant in this creative dialogue. She sought to express her own narrative, and perhaps, within that risk, forge genuine bonds with others. After mentally mapping her intent, Jessica felt an urge to explore what it meant to present her authenticity. What moments, she wondered, embodied her resilience? What trials could she convey that others might find familiar? She toyed with the notion of exposing her earlier struggles with self-identity, feeling a blend of excitement and unease. "Your art should reflect you," Mrs. Eleanor had said. With that thought, Jessica brushed her fingers across her forearms, feeling the goosebumps rise at the challenge. Choosing to be vulnerable was no easy task. What if the hope and determination she wanted to convey weren't enough? What if her story turned out to be yet another mundane tale, drowned beneath the weight of more vibrant works? As these thoughts battled inside her, Jessica walked toward a cluster of artists engaged in spirited discussion. She hesitated, observing them from the sidelines, the camaraderie and enthusiasm palpable. This should be encouraging, she thought, yet a sense of isolation crept over her. What if they find my backstory too simplistic? What if... She paused, legacy troubles creeping back into her mind. Gathering her wits, she took a step closer. A subtle shift in her posture reflected her choice. She decided to confront her insecurity head-on. What if she approached this opportunity with a question rather than a presentation? "Hey, can I join?" Jessica ventured in, her voice slightly wavering but strengthened by a surge of resolve. "Of course," a friendly artist replied, motioning for her to take a seat. "We were just discussing the biggest influences on our work. What about you?" Jessica felt a flicker of anxiety followed by triumph. This was it. Her moment to engage, to share, to connect. "I'm still figuring it out, but I know that my journey has played a significant role in shaping my perspective as an artist," she replied, her heart racing yet her tone steady. "Definitely," a tattooed woman said with a nod. "Emotions drive our art. Tell us about your journey." Taking a deep breath, she began to recount episodes from her past. The tangled emotions of loss, the desperate attempts to reclaim her identity after her son's birth, the struggle to reconcile her dreams with reality. As she spoke, Jessica felt those insecurities lessen. She could see empathy reflected back in their eyes. The realization struck her. There was power in sharing not just the polished version of her life, but the mess of it too. These artists resonated with her honesty, and their reactions fueled her spirit. Their stories followed, echoing her own struggles and aspirations, creating this beautiful, synchronous rhythm of vulnerability and strength. It dawned on Jessica that she had already begun forming a tapestry with her thread. The connection she sought was right here, not in perfect presentations, but in shared narratives. Yet, even as warmth wrapped around her heart, an undercurrent of doubt loomed. Would this engagement flourish into something deeper, or was it merely a momentary connection? Jessica's resolve quivered as she deliberated her next steps. This was her chance to solidify her new identity, to merge her personal experiences with her artistic vision in a cohesive way. But what form would that take? Would she find the medium that encapsulated her journey, or falter in the attempt? The uncertainty loomed larger than ever, hanging thick like moisture in the air. Inspiration fluttered just out of reach as the weight of her choices pressed down. Was it possible to transform her personal struggles into art that resonated? Or did fear still have the power to sow doubt? As she stood amidst the vibrant crowd, Jessica sensed the urgency of the moment. The time was approaching for her to solidify her path, a crossroad where art and life intertwined, leading toward an unknown horizon that beckoned her forward. Could she seize it? Or would she slip back into the shadows? The air felt charged, and Jessica willed herself to break through the hesitance still clinging to her skin. She'd shared her past, her vulnerabilities, something she had thought impossible just moments ago. But the reality of her emotional disclosure sank deeper than expected, a mix of exhilaration and trepidation weaving through her thoughts. Each shared story had been a thread pulling her closer to this eclectic group, and she understood. This was not the end of her unveiling. It was just the beginning. In the heat of the moment, Jessica vividly recalled Mrs. Eleanor's words. Influence mustn't just stay surface level. It should delve into the marrow of her existence. That meant transcending her fears of mediocrity. Maybe her fragments, raw and imperfect as they were, could connect with others in ways she'd never considered before. As the discussions continued, Jessica felt a swell of courage. Perhaps it was time to take agency not only over how she presented her art, but over the medium itself. She could experiment, blending photography, videos, and paint to create an assemblage that birthed new layers of connection. The thought ignited a fire within her. The possibilities danced like flickering shadows, and each step into the unknown morphed into a challenge she craved rather than dreaded. "Can I ask you all something?" she said, raising her voice above the conversation. The flicker of uncertainty flashed momentarily, but she pushed through. "If one element of your identity could be transformed into a piece of art, what would it be, and why?" Silence befell the group as her questions sank in, each member grappling with the implications. Jessica watched them closely, the anticipation mingling with her own excitement. One after another they began to share, revealing stories of family heritage, personal loss, and unfulfilled dreams. Within that intimate fabric of shared identity, Jessica found clarity. The barriers between artist and audience dissipated, replaced by mutual exploration. As she absorbed the unfolding narratives, Jessica experienced an awakening. The struggle she feared would render her art mundane was, in fact, her greatest asset. Her own story and those of others were intricately woven together. Each experience was both an influence and an echo reverberating through their creative expressions. This could be a journey of intertwining life and art. After the conversation ebbed, Jessica found herself at a crossroads. It was exhilarating. Her identity was forming, layered with possibilities. Yet fear still whispered. What if she took this leap and fell? "You know," the tattooed woman remarked, catching Jessica's eye with understanding. "The art that connects the most often comes from the places we least want to go." The truth resonated deep within Jessica, and she knew this was not merely an observation. It was an invitation to confront her own experiences, to allow the unease to lead her to growth. More than that, it was a challenge to encapsulate her journey through her art unapologetically. This resolve, however, was shadowed by the question that lingered. Could she genuinely portray the complexity of her emotions without stripping herself bare? With each pulse of uncertainty coursing through her, she realized she needed another step forward, a bold decision to unearth her hidden capabilities, rallying her fears into fuel for creation. That night, as she returned home, the image of her ideas nestled in her mind. Jessica caught sight of her reflection in the glass. This was her moment. In the mirror, she saw more than just an artist. She viewed a storyteller on the brink of emergence. But before she could firmly grasp it, a thought spiraled in her mind, wrestling with her newfound determination. Was it truly possible to integrate the rawness of her emotions into something beautiful? If she attempted this, what truths would she unearth about herself? And what if those truths became a catalyst for others, much like the artists who had just inspired her? The air felt heavier with anticipation, thickening with potential as her journey was just beginning. But shadows loomed on the horizon. Would she have the power to confront those shadows head-on? Or would they continue to haunt her steps into the light? The morning sun filtered through Jessica's bedroom window, illuminating the remnants of last night's fervor. She felt it, the weight of possibility mingling with the lingering shadows of doubt. Today wasn't just another day. It was a new canvas, one that begged to be painted with her truth. As she sipped her coffee, she considered where to begin. A blank page sprawled before her, taunting her with its emptiness. The first stroke was often the hardest, but she felt a rhythm thumping beneath her skin, a tempo of urgency that eclipsed fear. She wanted to portray the intricacies of her emotions, to let vulnerability bleed onto the page. But what would that look like? Grabbing her sketchbook, she began to sketch an outline of herself, incorporating her past, the moments of heartbreak, joy, and everything in between. Each line mirrored a feeling, each stroke underscored a memory. Inspired, she dipped her brush into color and watched as hues bled and melded, much like her own experiences. The canvas transformed before her eyes, layers forming, textures emerging, unfolding the tales she had held too tightly for far too long. But a question gnawed at her. Could other elements of her identity truly resonate beyond the confines of her own experience? What if she could communicate those truths more vividly? Images of reconnecting with her family bubbled up. Her grandmother's stories, her mother's laughter, and the echoes of her childhood laughter. They were pivotal threads that, when woven together, could tell a richer, more complex narrative. Determined, she decided to dig deeper into her past for inspiration. That weekend, she gathered her family for an impromptu baby shower for her sister. It wasn't just an ordinary family gathering. It was a chance to evoke shared memories and sentiment through the celebration of new beginnings. It was neither the best-kept secret nor an extravagant event. Instead, it would be authentic. Jessica conceived a plan. She would document each interaction, each laugh, and each awkward moment, capturing the ephemeral connections that would manifest amidst the chaos. As the festivities unfolded, Jessica found herself hyper-aware of the nuances. Crumpled gift wrap symbolizing the layers of life expectations, the laughter of children intertwining with the wisdom of the elders, and the small, poignant silences that thickened the air. She realized these were the roots from which stories grew. Somewhere in the midst of all this, she positioned herself as both the observer and participant, relishing her dual role. With her camera in hand, she navigated the lively scene, capturing candid reactions and uplifting moments. Each snap reverberated through her canvas. It was proof that vulnerability often sparked connection. Later that day, armed with images and memories, she returned home. The energy of the baby shower lingered, and the stories flowed back into her mind. Sitting before her canvas, she wasn't just painting her past. She was amalgamating emotions. Stories of baby showers, holiday gatherings, significant life transitions effortlessly weaving into the fabric of her work. Jessica started to execute her plan, combining elements of photography with painting, layering the vibrant energy of her family into a single piece of art. It became a narrative of its own, the chaos of life merging with the beauty of relationships. The work pulsated with life. It burst forth with energy that made her pulse quicken with each stroke. But just as she felt a sense of accomplishment creeping in, the shadows returned, whispering doubts into her ears. Would her family's stories resonate beyond the warmth of their shared laughter? Would her interpretation be seen as frivolous? Jessica hesitated, feeling the weight of expectation suffocating beneath the urge to unleash. Yet, it was in that very tension that her heart thudded louder, urging her onward. If she wanted to depict authentic connection, she could not shy away from the underlying chaos or the awkward moments. Would she transform this gathering into an incredible moment of hidden connection? Or would the weight of her insecurities keep her from fully embracing the challenge? An invisible force tugged at her resolve. In that moment of uncertainty, she set down her brush. Tomorrow she would confront the shadows lurking in corners of her mind, ready to unveil the truths lurking beneath. It was time to break free from limitation, or risk remaining trapped in a cycle of self-doubt. As she glanced at the half-finished piece, she mused. Could this final creation bring her closer to the awakening she craved? A gust of wind passed through the open window, scattering her thoughts like leaves. What truth might emerge if she continued to challenge herself in ways she had never imagined before? Jessica awoke with a surge of energy, a renewed sense of purpose pulsing through her veins. Today would be different. Today would be the day she excavated the layers of her past and intertwined them with her present aspirations. She reviewed her plan meticulously, mentally rehearsing the connections she wanted to make. Yet a question niggled at the back of her mind. Could she articulate the connection without losing herself in the chaos? Seated at her desk, she laid out her photographs. Snapshots of her family's raw and authentic moments, each one a fragment of a larger narrative. It was a tangible representation of her history, a mosaic waiting to be assembled. As she sifted through the images, recalling the laughter, the shared glances, and even the tense moments that had painted the day, Jessica felt a spark, a burgeoning understanding that her vulnerability was her greatest strength. She embarked on her creative endeavor, layering the photographs onto her canvas like an archaeologist uncovering artifacts. Here was the carefree spirit of her little niece, a moment captured mid-laughter, the joy erupting like fireworks. There was her grandmother, quietly observing yet fully present, a subtle reminder of the wisdom passed down through generations. Each piece whispered stories that demanded to be told, but as she worked, shadows of doubt flickered through her mind. What would people think? Would they consider this an intrusion into the sanctity of family moments? The thought sent a shiver down her spine. Would her artistic endeavor trivialize these cherished experiences? Clenching her brush, she reminded herself that art should incite conversation, evoke feelings, and explore the complexities of human connection. As she painted, a realization began to settle within her. She was not simply depicting her family's dynamics, but rather unveiling the nuances that shaped their relationships. The beauty of their flaws, the imperfections sealed in laughter, and the whispering silence of unspoken words began to seep into the strokes. She was creating something greater than herself. Art that celebrated authenticity. Jessica's heart raced as the piece evolved, a tapestry woven from the complex strands of life. As she layered color and texture, she felt herself unraveling preconceived notions of how her work would be received. The chaos was not something to fear. It was the essence of connection, a narrative thread leading back to herself. Her resolve crystallized like morning dew, fresh and invigorating. Each brushstroke was a silent battle against her insecurities. Confronting hidden fears, she leaned into her vulnerabilities. She made deliberate choices to include awkward, transcendent moments, showcasing the reality of family dynamics. The tension between joy and discomfort painted a fuller picture of love. But just as Jessica brought the final touches to her canvas, her phone buzzed with an unexpected message. It was an invitation to share her work at a local exhibit. An opportunity to expose her creation, her vulnerability, had arrived. Yet it loomed over her like a dark storm cloud. How would she present the intimate chaos she had just created? Would anyone resonate with her interpretation? Caught between exhilaration and apprehension, she faltered. It was easy to dismiss those doubts as the fears of a novice artist, yet the stakes felt painfully real. She had woven a narrative that bared her soul. But was she truly ready for the world to witness it? As she mulled over the invitation, she envisioned her art hanging in a gallery space. A testament not only to her family's legacy, but her growth. Yet, the thought of standing under the scrutiny of a discerning audience was paralyzing. Would they dissect her work, or celebrate its authenticity? Jessica made a decision. She would embrace this opportunity. It was a chance not only to express herself, but to challenge the very fears that had tugged at her heartstrings. This moment was a critical juncture on her journey of self-discovery. The time had come to transform those awkward truths into profound connections. As she set the invitation down, an undeniable spark ignited within her. With renewed determination, Jessica understood that she needed to confront the shadows of fear head-on, transitioning from an artist seeking approval to an artist eager to share. A catalyst for connection through raw honesty. In this new realm of possibility, she felt a familiar pulse of creative urgency. Would this exhibit be the key to unlocking a deeper understanding of herself? What truths would she unearth in the process? The weight of the invitation pressed heavily on Jessica's mind as she laid awake in the early hours of the morning. The faint glow of dawn slipped through her curtains, bathing her room in a soft light that felt both welcoming and intimidating. Today she would step out of her comfort zone, yet the anticipation surged and receded like the tide, revealing her insecurities in a way she had not expected. In the soft stillness, Jessica's thoughts drifted back to her childhood. Memories unfurled, showing her a little girl timidly presenting crayon drawings to adults, eager for validation. Disappointment swirled through her whenever their praise felt perfunctory, leaving her yearning for genuine connection. How often had she sought approval rather than focusing on the passion that ignited her creative pursuits? As daylight broke, she dived into her preparations, pulling on a pair of paint-stained jeans and a vibrant blouse. Colors reflecting the energy she hoped to project. Selecting additional pieces for her collage, she felt an urge to include her own early works. Those shaky hands of youth, scribbling out emotions she couldn't articulate, showed a spark that had never truly extinguished. It was her quiet rebellion against self-doubt. Arriving at the gallery felt like stepping onto a stage. The crisp white walls loomed around her, ready to display her vulnerabilities for the world to see. She fought the urge to turn back, her heart pounding as another wave of uncertainty crashed over her. Would her portrayal of intricate family dynamics resonate, or would it seem like an overshare? Too raw, too much. Once inside, the faint scent of fresh paint intertwined with the nervous energy of fellow artists. Each face around her told a similar tale, bravado mixed with apprehension. Yet Jessica focused on herself, replaying her mantra. Art as a bridge, not a wall. Carefully she hung her piece, allowing the adhesive to anchor her creation firmly against the wall. As the last hook secured it in place, a rush of warmth enveloped her. This was not just painting. It was a vivid expression of her journey, the chaos of life distilled into meaningful insights. Then came the daunting task of mingling. Each handshake felt like another step into the abyss of vulnerability. She was greeted with polite smiles, but each smile felt weighted by the unspoken expectations of critique. Jessica fumbled for words, sensing a palpable tension in the gallery air, contrasted with the vibrant colors of her work. Was she speaking about her art, or about herself? "Is this your first exhibit?" A curious onlooker asked, her eyes flickering over the canvas with genuine intrigue. Jessica paused, the question resonating with warm familiarity. "Yes," she finally replied, heart pounding. "But I've been creating since I was a child. I think it's when I realized I wanted every piece to tell a story." "I can see that." The observer nodded, stepping closer to peer at the artwork. "It's both beautiful and haunting." The words sparked something within Jessica. As she engaged in a meaningful conversation about her art, she felt the liberation of honesty surge, each word slicing through the veil of fear. Sharing the tales behind each photograph, the laughter, the tears, unshackled her inner self. This was more profound than mere expression. It was a connection, a moment of vulnerability bridging her past and her present. Yet just as she felt her confidence blossom, murmurs of dissent drifted from a corner of the gallery. An assertive critic disparaged her work's emotional honesty, rebuking the messiness of familial love. Jessica's pulse quickened. Their words wormed into her psyche, setting off a dangerous oscillation between validation and rejection. The experience had become a complex battleground, challenging her resolve. Would she let this interruption taint her spirit, or rise to affirm the purpose behind her art? She stood there, faced with an unexpected decision. Should she confront the critic, risking further conflict, or brush off the criticism and continue to forge connections within this artistic moment? Jessica inhaled deeply, the aroma of fresh paint mingling with uncertainty. The time had come to take a decisive step, a chance not only to defend her work, but to assert her newfound identity on this vibrant, unpredictable journey. What would happen when she confronted the obstacles standing between her and the authenticity she yearned to convey? In the wake of the critic's harsh words, Jessica felt an intense withdrawal. But then, from somewhere deep within, a determination ignited. She would not allow the doubts of others to redefine her journey. Spurred by a newfound sense of purpose, she took a step forward, striving to embody the courage she so fervently admired in the artwork around her. "Excuse me," Jessica said, her voice steady. The gallery buzz faded momentarily as eyes turned toward her. "I appreciate the passion for artistry, but we must remember that the true essence of creation lies in vulnerability. Our stories are composed of both light and shadow. That balance is what connects us." As she spoke, she noticed nods of agreement from those within earshot. This was not the mere acceptance of critique. It was the affirming power of her conviction. Each word she spoke was an acknowledgement of her own complexities, a merging of personal narrative with universal themes of struggle and love. Suddenly she was emboldened to share the inspirations behind her art, delicately recalling memories that intertwined joy with heartache. She confessed that creative expression bloomed from vulnerability, an aperture through which perspectives could shift and revelations could blossom. Jessica realized this was her epoch, a moment to showcase not just her artwork, but her evolution, her metamorphosis into a confident individual, unafraid to express her truths. The rhythmic sharing created a tangible atmosphere in the room. Laughter mingled with the affirmations of fellow artists who bounced off each other, revealing their own stories through their creations. Jessica felt lifted, her voice becoming a lyrical thread stitching together lives, experiences, and emotions. In that instant, she wasn't simply an artist. She was a curator of connection. The critic, who initially appeared dismissive, now wore a thoughtful expression. Jessica redirected her focus to them, sensing their defensive posture wavering as they absorbed the collective energy of the crowd. With each heartfelt moment shared, the barrier of judgment seemed to dissolve, replaced by resonant understanding. After the conversations began to dwindle, she ventured to approach the critic. There was an awkward silence, but Jessica stood tall, willing to listen to their critique with an open heart. "Can we discuss your perspective?" she asked gently. "What resonates differently for you within art's emotional expressions?" To her surprise, despite their initial harshness, the critic softened. "I suppose I expected something." They hesitated, searching for words. More refined, less raw. "Isn't rawness part of us all?" Jessica offered. "What if, in embracing our journeys, we find a broader empathy that challenges traditional forms of success and beauty?" Her contemplative look crossed the critic's face. Beneath their rigid stance, a flicker of recognition emerged. Perhaps there's merit in that. Maybe vulnerability holds a beauty we often shy away from. They extended their hand, and Jessica clasped it firmly, that simple gesture sealing an understanding that transcended their earlier collision. As the evening progressed, the conversation swelled with enthusiasm. An artist from across the room approached her, sharing how her story resonated deeply with their own struggles. Jessica felt a rich tapestry of energy grow and pulse around her, a web of connection binding together their stripped bare emotions. Each connection drew from her journey, culminating in impact. The realization that her art was not merely about personal catharsis, but about catalyzing dialogue. It was a conduit. Jessica stood on the precipice of transformation, realizing she had conquered her fears of inadequacy through engagement, connection, and open-heartedness. As the night came to a close, Jessica felt a liberating weight lift off her shoulders. The whispers of doubt had been silenced by the clarity she had reclaimed through vulnerability. She stepped away from the event, her heart brimming with newfound solid confidence in her ability to express herself authentically, unfettered by societal expectations or self-imposed limitations. Returning home, she entered her space with an exhilarating sense of accomplishment. Charlie's warm smile greeted her, an anchor of reassurance. "Mom, how was it?" "It was incredible, Charlie. I shared my truth and it felt powerful." As they settled onto the couch, Jessica felt a compelling pride. She had paved a new path where her identity flourished, one that didn't merely exist in the shadows of others, but rose emphatically in the light of her journey. These insights cascaded through her mind as she carried the momentum forward, resolving to continue embracing her artistry, intertwining her voice with those who shared similar narratives as well. In this life-altering moment, Jessica finally recognized her worth, not just as an artist or a mother, but as an unapologetic individual ready to invite others into her world. With her heart open to new possibilities, she seized the moment she had long awaited, one where her art and life intertwined as a definitive celebration of authenticity. She realized she had transformed that once awkward instance of sharing into an incredible moment of connection, and more importantly, into a pathway towards self-acceptance. Jessica had become the artist she always aspired to be, standing confidently at the threshold of her future. This marked not just the closing of an eventful chapter, but the exciting beginnings of stories yet to come. Now is the time to take action. You need to subscribe now to witness more transformative tales like Jessica's. Leave a like now, so you can support the hard work behind these emotional stories. Comment below with your thoughts and theories about Jessica's journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need inspiration in their own lives. Don't wait even one more second. Your engagement makes a difference.